Hello, everybody. We're here providing videos to enhance the discussion sets for Experiencing America. I'm Maria Bernier from the Connecticut State Library, and I'm here with Christy Billings from the Russell Library to hear about her racial justice book group. So, Christy, tell us about your book group. What's the background?
So the book group started before the pandemic. It was started because our director at the time asked if we would have these kind of discussions. Um, so we started in 2018, and I have to say there wasn't a whole lot of direction or book lists at the time. So it was a challenge. And I had a lot of anxiety around this because I'm a white woman leading a book on racial issues, leading this book discussion. And I felt like, what can I bring to the table? How can I do a good job with this? And how can I make this something that's going to be meaningful for our community? So that's how we started. We started pretty small. I think our first couple of sessions, we only had 2 or 3 people, but it just blew up. We had a partnership with our own racial justice community here in Middletown, and so we would have sometimes 25, 30 people that would come to these discussions. I would be pulling in chairs from places, trying to make room for people to come in. It was amazing. And people came with questions. People came wanting to know what they could do to make a difference. And we really enjoyed our time together. And the pandemic kind of changed things a little bit. So I'll say right now, we did go forward during the pandemic on Zoom. Our numbers dropped a bit. And at this point, we're on pause. But we're hoping to get back to this soon, doing it sort of more as a hybrid discussion where we could be on Zoom and also in person. So we're looking forward to that.
Super. And also, could you tell us about your experience leading this group and facilitating discussions?
So as a facilitator, kind of doing difficult discussions, I would recommend a training either in person or on a virtual platform on how to facilitate. And I'll put a link, a slide with a link that'll be at the bottom of our chat today. I attended a virtual training, and it was a Community Voices Heard, and it was how to be a facilitator. And it was not facilitating book discussions, but I found that the 7 or 8 minute video really gave me a lot of tools and tips to use in these discussions to make sure that you were getting all the ideas that people wanted to say, and also helping people who maybe weren't the ones that always spoke up to also be part of the conversation. Everybody should have the opportunity to participate. People should know that it's a safe space. You want your discussion to be meaningful. You want to actively listen as the facilitator. And that's always hard because you've got your questions and you want to, make sure that you're getting to all the things, all the topics that you think are meaningful and you want to discuss, but actively listen and let people finish their thoughts. So that's a big piece of facilitating some of these difficult discussions. The other piece, I think, is having community guidelines. And I would send out our community guidelines in an email prior to each one of our discussions because we had new people that were coming all the time. And I can add those too if folks would like to look at these later. One of our discussions, one of our community guidelines for the discussion was what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. What happens in the book discussion stays in the book discussion. What's learned here leaves here, but what's said here stays here. So if you've learned something, take it out and spread it. But if somebody has said a personal story or said something from their own life, don't share other people's experiences, but take the lessons that you've learned from it. Also use I statements. You don't want to put words in in people's mouths that they're saying. Use I statements for yourself. Discuss ideas and not people. You want to disagree or agree with the ideas, not with the person that's sharing them. You want to assume a positive intent. we're all learning, we're all doing the best we can. And that's something to remember. And then step up, step back. That is a piece that I think people who love to talk have a hard time with. If you're the person that loves to comment and always has a lot of things to say, make sure that you're not taking over the conversation from somebody else. And as the facilitator, that's important. You want to be able to recognize and say, maybe it's time that we hear from some other folks. I have on occasion said to somebody, oh, so-and-so, you look like you have something to add to the conversation. And I would never call out somebody, just like a fourth grade teacher would be like, oh, you're not paying attention. I need you to pay attention. But often I know people would comment that maybe wouldn't have said anything when you said, hey, I want to hear what you have to say about this. So don't be afraid to use that. I never in all the time that I did the discussions had somebody say, nope, no, I don't have anything to add. Always when I would use that, they would say, yeah, I think I do have something to say about that. So that's the community guidelines.
Nice. Now, we had talked earlier, and I'd like to hear from you a little bit more about your learning curve of doing a racial justice book group as a white woman. How does that work?
Well, that's a very good question. My thoughts on this, I had to recognize that I can never truly understand what life is like for our friends that are BIPOC. I recognized that it was my own responsibility to educate myself on racial issues, not our attendees at the book group, not my friends that were BIPOC or coworkers. This was my job. And I needed to address some statements myself. I had heard over and over that race isn't really an issue in Middletown. People might say, I don't see color. Everyone's the same. And I needed to address those issues myself because color blindness only hides racial issues. It doesn't address them. And I recognized pretty early on that asking my BIPOC friends and patrons to repeat stories of trauma was wrong, dead wrong. So that was one of the things I put in that email that I talked about, and I can send a little outline of that, saying we don't ask people to repeat their trauma. It is not necessary. It is not something that you have to do when you come to this book discussion if you're a person of color. That's something that people have been asked to do, and it's just wrong. I made my own mistakes, and I had to own them. So if somebody called me out and said, hey, I don't think that's proper, you have to own it, and you have to admit, yep, I made a mistake, and then look to do better in the future.
Thank you. Looking now at kind of just the flow of the regular book discussion program, can we talk about that? How you come up with questions, how you work your way through the hour or so discussion, questions you may have for bringing people in, tips that you have on that.
So before the pandemic, I would have questions that I would hand out. People could read a question off a card. And I have great coworkers that help me create those. Sometimes I would use questions from the publisher. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of great folks out there that have put together questions. I tried to make them as open-ended as possible. I might edit them, but I would try to give credit to the folks that created the questions that I was using. And then there were some books where there were just 0 questions. This is really before a time when these kinds of things were available. So you can make your own questions up. It's not as hard as it sounds. I used reviews, book reviews from New York Times or Goodreads, and I would create questions from the reviews. I might even say, a reviewer has said XYZ about this book. What do you think of that? Is that a true statement? Or would you think, something different? I might ask if you've learned anything from this book, if you Googled anything reading this book, did you look up a map or a recipe? Did you try something new when you read this book? Things that will stimulate the conversation and may not be traditional book discussion questions.
Fabulous. Is there anything else? Oh, you had mentioned that you always wrap up your discussions with the same last question. What is that question?
So I asked if they would recommend the book to someone and who would they recommend this book to, because I want them to be thinking about that. I am kind of thinking library stats here, you want the other people to come in and check this book out. No, just kidding. But you kind of put them in mind to, what kind of other people might like to read this book. And I like to leave with that question for folks to kind of think about spreading the word a little bit.
Super. Thank you, Christy. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us in this video?
I think just don't be afraid of starting, just get it started. There's a lot of pieces that might hold you back a little bit doing something like this. I mean, these are difficult discussions, no question, but don't let that stop you. Get some titles, get some questions together. Maybe don't make it a monthly thing, maybe make it a quarterly thing and see how it goes with your community and your library, but don't be afraid to start.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Christy. We'll see you
Thank
again
you.
soon.
Thanks so
Thank
much.